So it says recording, so I'll take it at its word. Let me share my screen and we'll put up our slides. So our spring sports that we sponsor are volleyball and track. There are some bowling events. Some other folks mentioned kickball, wiffle ball. So feel free to be creative about other sports that you want to play. And I'm sure you can get some other folks excited about them as well. I'm going to skip over, let's see if I can make this work, right? I'm going to skip over the intent to enter stuff. Let me get to the right spot here. For a minute, we'll come back to that and get right to the sports. There's also a section on certification, which we can go back to, but I know most of you don't need that. So we're just going to move straight through for a few minutes. So for volleyball, volleyball tends to be pretty non-competitive for us. And we found that when we first introduced it, we used a regular volleyball for high school and a recreational volleyball for middle school, but it really wasn't very successful for us. So we've gone to the recreational volleyball for everybody. You can see them there in that picture with our volunteers. We suggest 12 players on a team so that you can rotate them through. So if you have a team of 24, register as 2 teams, and that way everybody can get some playing time in. Roughly half the team non-disabled, but then it depends on your individual situation. All our sports are co-ed, and you shouldn't have anybody who's a varsity player playing at the time. Probably their coach doesn't want them to be playing during their season anyway. 3 partners, 3 athletes on the court. Our partners are the non-disabled students, the typical peers as we call them, and the athletes are intellectually disabled or other developmentally delayed players. And you make that determination as to who is developmentally delayed or intellectually disabled. Sneakers must be worn. No jeans or jewelry. If you're making up your uniforms, you can't have any other sponsor names on the uniform, but we would like you to have the Special Olympics Unified Sports logo. If you're getting new ones, we can help provide that information. Shirts should be numbered. It's not a critical thing in volleyball, but especially in basketball, soccer, it's good to have numbers on them. Athletes wear even numbers, partners wear odd numbers, so that if we need to make some accommodations, we can tell who is who. We use a Voight Featherlight volleyball, 16-inch, or actually we've transitioned now to a Gopher Biggie ball. I have a picture on the next slide. If you need to, if you have some really low-level kids that needed to move even slower, you could use a beach ball. And we love you to have a school banner for our opening march and water cooler, medical kit, ice kit. There's a picture of that Biggie volleyball, and we can provide information for you on where to get those. That one's from Gopher. So if you just look up volleyball trainer from Gopher, I'd recommend that one actually because it's a little bit more substantial. We had problems with the other ones deflating, and they're not that cheap. So if a server in level 3 or 4 misses his first serve, a second serve is allowed. Actually, we allow a second serve automatically if need be. We use rally scoring, 25 points a game. So every time the ball goes over the net, there's a score is going to happen somewhere. You must win by 2 points. No overhead serving or spiking allowed at levels 3 and 4, especially by the partners. That's pretty much it for volleyball.
Hey, Bob, you just
yeah.
want to mention the levels, just so people know what they are?
Sure. Level one is, well, why don't you do that, Carol?
Oh,
They don't want to hear me.
well, level one would be your very high level of play, and level 4 and 5 would be a lower level of play. Most teams tend to be around a 3 level. There aren't very many in volleyball, especially there aren't very many 1s or 2s, if any. But we just kind of make the accommodations. It's primarily more for basketball. Those levels are really important, but just so you know, level 3 would be your moderate levels, have a sense of the game, understand they need to get it over the net, but may need help in getting it over the net.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. So for track and field, Paul and John, I'm going to defer to you on these. I surprised you by throwing some extra slides in here, but I think they'll be self-explanatory and I can jump in if need be. So go ahead.
Paul, I think you're on mute there.
I did, yes.
There you
Okay,
go.
sorry. I've been told that quite often. So as you can see, all of our track events are scored with a partner and athlete combined. And you can see a combination. It's a relay race, no matter what the distance might be. And athletes may compete in 2 track events. And we're not really that strict as far as if a young person would like to race again, we would not have a problem with trying to get them into a 3rd or even possibly a 4th track event. Some of our events aren't as crowded as others, so we're looking for we're looking for people to compete versus people then just to satisfy that recommendation. Our events are fairly simple. We have a 2x25 race, and we have a 2x50 wheelchair race, and we also we have a 2x25 wheelchair race, which isn't listed there, but we also have that. We have a 4x100 race, and very infrequently will we have a 4x200 race. That's more or less for a higher competition level athletes. 4x200 gets a little cumbersome and lengthy, and so we try to stay away from that. But we do have a 4x100 race. Our field events are running long jump, a standing long jump, a turbo jab, and we're going to have the shot put, and we're going to have a cornhole competition. So those are the stations that we would run. Everyone would run the running events at one time, and then we'll be on a rotating basis for our field events. So one school might be at the long jump, another school at the standing, broad jump, turbo jab, and those 5 stations there.
I threw in an example for the 4x100 for people who might not understand how that works. Athletes always finish the running race, because that's the exciting part, to have the athletes finish. So you can see the start finish at the bottom right. Partners would start the race, then the athletes would pick up the 2nd leg, the partners the 3rd leg, the athletes the 4th leg, and those folks would finish the race. Does that make sense to everybody? The hardest part about track is getting that organized and everybody to the right places. So that tends to take a little bit of time.
And that would also be the same for the sprint races, the 25, the 50, and the 100 yard sprint races too. The athletes always finish the race.
Right. And then the 4x200, there's just 2 spots. It's just, you have the partners, they hand off to the athletes, the athletes hand off to the next set of partners at the start finish line, and then they run around again, and the athletes finish out the 4th leg. So there's still 4 legs, they're just twice as long.
Okay. Want me to continue?
Sure, that'd be
Bob?
great.
Okay, so you can see a picture here of how one of our wheelchair races might look at the finish line, where a partner will be racing with an individual in the wheelchair. So the coaches then will determine which partner, which athlete will pair up to run each event. We'd like to have that organized prior to coming to our site. And if coaches can kind of make themselves a game plan as to who in your school district is going to run what events, it will help you and it'll help us when we try to get this event going. So you may have, okay, in line, whatever lane you're going to have for your 2x25, you have those athletes and partners all set up in advance. So then we can just say, Johnny and Jimmy are in lane 1 from Oxford High School. And so we can do it that way. The heats we run by the school, and the schools may have multiple heats to accommodate all your runners. So it doesn't mean that you're just going to have one group, two players, 2 schools, students from your school in an event. So you could have 5 running the same event, not all at the same time, but in heats. And we like to do that. The kids like to do that. The sprints are really exciting. And here's where you see the baton being passed. Somebody had a question about, will there be batons present? Yes, we provide a baton for every lane. And usually our volunteers will run the baton back to the start line again. So when we get to the 100-yard sprint, we have quite a few track volunteers from our host high schools. We'll be more than happy to run those batons back to the start line.
Although we're always missing a few by the end of the meet.
Yes. Yeah. We always try to ask people at the end if you can just make sure that you don't go home with our batons. So as a souvenir.
Good. I threw in a picture of the turbo jabs here, so you know what they are. They're kind of a plastic javelin. They are an actual training tool for the real javelin throwers. So they're not as easy to throw as you might think. But obviously they're much safer than throwing the javelin in a unified meet. And there's a link down there where you could buy a kit. They're not cheap, but we'll talk about that at the end of the session, how we might be able to help with that. And Paul, I think we used the indoor shot even outdoors. Isn't that correct?
We did. Most of our facilities that we go to for track and field have synthetic turf fields. So what we do is to use a soft indoor shot, because some people feel that the conventional iron shot will dent their field. So this is something that's used indoors to prevent damage to a gymnasium floor. So we use that, and we have them readily available. We recommend that you get at least 1, possibly 2, for practice at your school.
And we'll have like a softball also available at
Yes.
the shot put site, so that if there's a kid who can't handle even a 6-pound shot, they can still participate.
Yes, we'll use a softball for that event.
Now we're going to turn it over to the commissioner of cornhole.
So, thank you. So we decided that we got a grant from Special Olympics Connecticut, and so we wanted to add another event and our field event. So cornhole is the fastest growing field event in the country, and so we're jumping right on board with that. And so we're going to add some stations, some cornhole stations on the field events, so that your student athletes will have the opportunity to participate in that sport. In order to accommodate any students who have physical disabilities that aren't able to throw the full distance of 27 some odd feet, you can feel free to adjust and move the athlete closer to the board that they are throwing at. In the tournaments that we're going to be setting up, and we're going to run a couple of beta test tournaments this spring, we're going to actually have, if you're familiar with cornhole, typically the partners stand opposite ends of each other. We're going to have the athletes and the partners stand together at the same end of the boards and throw all of their cornhole bags at one end, and then add up all of the points that get scored on that end, so that you're not knocking other people's points off the board, and it's not a complicated scoring system. It's merely a matter of whatever points get scored. If it lands on the board, it's 1 point. If it lands ultimately in the hole, that's 3 points. And we would total up the score for the athlete and the partner together, throwing down the same end. That way you get to keep the socialization piece with the athletes and the partners kind of working together. And then we'll just compare the scores with people that are at the opposite end from another team or another school that are throwing. So we're excited about it. It should be fun. We're hoping that it's going to be successful. And if you have any questions, let me know.
John, I don't
Yes.
want to say anything ahead of time, but did you want to mention the special offer that you
So
were offering?
if you are
So much
going
for saying anything
to,
ahead of time, Barb.
What's
that's
that?
it.
So much for saying anything ahead of time.
So if your school, if you have unified track and you're offering unified track as a program, we still have some grant money that is available to get you some cornhole sets for your school. Just send me an email, and I will set you up with a link, and we'll get all the information that's necessary to get you some official CIAC unified sports cornhole sets for your unified track team. Very excited to be able to make that happen. If you do ultimately order some of the cornhole boards from us, the cornhole set will be shipped to you separately from the stickers. You'll have to apply the logo stickers once you get the boards mailed directly to your school. So it's a great thing. If you're interested, let me know, and I will get you a set of cornhole boards as soon as possible.
And to add on to that, if you need a set of turbo jabs or a shot put or a set of batons, you can just include that information when you email John. That's J Niski, Niski at CASCIAC.org. And just let him know that you're looking for funding for the other track equipment as well. And then I'll send out a grant letter to you, and we'll reimburse your school for the cost of those things as well. So wheelchair athletes participate in separate track events with or without partner assistance. So if they can propel the wheelchair on their own, that's great. If they need somebody to push, that's fine. You can see in the upper portion of that picture, there is a young man with an electric wheelchair that's moving along. So we don't have different heats for electric and manual. It's participation that is the most important thing, and everybody crossing the finish line is a winner in that race. Yeah, in terms of Paul, how are you handling this in terms of the track and field entries?
We'll send out a form to all of you that are being entered, and then you can use that as your formatting for who's going to be in what event. Like who'll be in the 2x25 wheelchair, who's going to be in the 2x50, so that you have it, and it helps you and it helps us. So when we go to line people up at the start line, that you'll know, okay, I have these individuals in this race and how many heats of that, so that it keeps you a little bit more organized, helps you be a little bit more organized, and it helps us when we try to place people in heats. We don't like to put a school in side-by-side lanes. And we want to spread the schools out so there's more socialization. And we also, as Bob said earlier, if you need assistance for one of your athletes, then we'll allow that to happen. So could there be 3 people in a lane for a relay race? Yes, there could. There could be. Some people need a little guidance going down the first 25 yards or the first 50 yards.
Great. Uniforms, appropriate track attire, shorts and a shirt or a warm-up. No jeans, and sneakers. We don't allow cleats because we don't want to wreck up any surfaces, and they're not really for the level of competition that we're seeing in unified track. Plus, they're a safety concern potentially. We encourage no jewelry, hats, headgear. Everybody who participates will receive a medal. And again, folks who are on your JV or varsity track teams at the time shouldn't be competing as a partner.
But the partners, those kids could help during practice
Absolutely.
if they're allowed,
That'd
if
be
their
great.
coach lets them. Yeah.
And practice is important, not only for the development of skills, but for the growth of your social connections. And, we have a lot of schools who have more than one program in their district. And we encourage you to expand your programs beyond your school to upper or lower levels in your district, and we'll be glad to help with that as well. What questions do we have about, I'm going to stop the share for a minute so we can see all of you. And what questions do we have about any of those things we covered so far?
One of the things that if you went back a slide,
Yeah,
in all of our events, we have an opening ceremony. Some of you have been involved in this year, so you know what I'm talking about. But one thing we like to do is to have every school have a banner. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a school that's entering for our opening ceremony, and they have a banner. Now, banners don't have to be as elaborate as a tackle twill nylon banner, which might run $400, but they can be as easy as a vinyl banner from one of the local print shops who may also donate it. We really would like you to bring, if you have a banner, bring it to our event. If you don't have a banner, you may want to talk to either the athletic director at your school or the building principal for some funding on that. Shouldn't be all that expensive. I would think that a vinyl banner, and we recommend that you go somewhere like 3 feet by 6 feet. We found that having a 4-foot banner may, as you can see in this picture, if you have a short member of your team, there's a good chance they might step on the bottom of the banner and then trip.
you can get a vinyl banner pretty cheaply from Vistaprint as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, it sounded like we have some fairly new people, and I don't know if they're familiar with your registration process or in our website.
I was going to get back to that, but
Okay.
there are some folks who have done it before who may not need to stay for that part.
Gotcha.
So I didn't want
Yep.
to make them stick around for stuff they didn't need, but we're going to go back to that.
Okay.
So what questions about track or volleyball did we leave unanswered in your minds?
I just have a quick question, John, for the cornhole. I think you probably said it and I just caught the end, but today in practice, I was looking up the distance. So I did it out, but it was way too far apart for the kids. So that's when you said they'll be spaced the distance, the 24 feet or the whatever, but you move the athlete closer. Oh, you're muted though.
So you can absolutely move the athletes closer to whatever distance you think is appropriate for them to be able to be successful. Sometimes it's easier, it's always going to be easier to move the athletes closer than to try to move the boards and keep adjusting and moving the boards back and forth depending upon. But if you find that all of your athletes are successful at the 15-foot range, then you set them up at the 15-foot range. And you want it to be somewhat challenging, but you want them to be able to get the board, the bags to land on the board. So whatever works for you, we will adjust as we go along.
Thank you.
I apologize. I also have a question, but I'm late to the game, so you might have already covered this and said this. But for some reason I hadn't gotten the link, so I just got it recently.
Oh, sorry about that.
With volleyball, unfortunately, this is just my third year coaching, and we got the world shut down right before our volleyball season. So I'm clueless about the volleyball. How many people are on the court for a team during volleyball?
Typically 6,
Yeah.
but sometimes we'll modify that depending on the skill level of a group with the agreement of the other coach.
And we are using those large volleyballs?
The 16-inch trainer volleyballs, yeah. Hey, Karen, what school are you at?
I'm at North Haven.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so this is our first volleyball go through. Because last year we didn't really train with volleyball since we weren't going to be doing a tournament. We did a lot of various fun activities instead. So we're trying to figure it out as we go along. Well,
It's a very low stress, our brand of volleyball. Matter of fact, we almost look at it as more of an activity than a sport. I'm sorry about that, Joan, but we don't rally a whole lot in some of these games. And so we're just working on skill development, and we do keep score, but it's not what you look at a varsity volleyball game, to be sure.
Okay, didn't expect it to be, but thank you.
Okay.
Karen, I'll make sure that you get the link, and that has all the information as to what the product is that we use for the volleyball.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Other questions?
For
Great.
the partners, is there like an age limit? So if I have like a 6th grader running, the 2x25, can I have like a senior running with them, or should it be someone more in the elementary school realm?
Well, we segregate our meets between high school and middle school. So you could figure middle school ages, 5th or 6th grade through 8th grade, and then high school freshman through senior. So we would, you could mix them a little bit on the cusp if you needed to, but we wouldn't want to see like a 6th grader and a senior out there on the same kind of a meet.
I want to chime in again for a quick second, totally
Yeah.
not related to this, but I just remembered that anyone who is able to watch Channel 8 News at 5 o'clock today, there's supposed to be a segment about best buddies and unified sports in North Haven.
Oh, great.
On the news. So if anyone's interested, it's on Channel 8 News, and it's supposed to be airing in the 5 o'clock news show.
Thank you.
So thanks for letting me, promo that.
There's a great reason to end this session before 5 o'clock, Bob Hale, just saying.
Well, I don't think we're going to go to 5 o'clock. So I do want to cycle back to the certification information and the registration information for anyone who needs it. But unless we have other questions, that's where I'm going to head now.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
If anybody here sent in a form for the banquet, it's totally off topic, nothing to do with sports, but for the awards ceremony, and you haven't sent in your registration for the sports banquet yet, can you please do so? Or email me or let me know if you're planning on attending. Thank you.
We're getting we're getting a real nice crowd there, and we want to make sure that we have room for you. Good. So let's cycle back. So if you want to stay, you're welcome to. But if you want to log off, if you know about registration and certification, feel free to do that. I'm going to reshare my screen and go back to those slides. So I have to go back to the.
Bob, while you're finding the certification slides, just want to let everybody know that in preparation for the awards banquet on the end of the month, we have been putting together a video to sort of thank Bo Doherty for his service to Unified Sports over the last 30 years. And if anybody from your team wanted to send us a 5 to 10 second thank you, Bo, video clip or picture with a poster thanking Bo, we'll add it to that video that we're going to show at the awards banquet.
Thank you, John. Yeah, so to enter our tournaments, there is a website attached to the CIAC site, and you enter all your athletes and partners, check off the proper events. Let me just see if I'm in the right spot here. So you navigate to our website, cicsports.com. I'll send, if you send me an email, rhale@cassic.org, I will send you a direct link to this page. So you just enter your school information, check which event or events you want to enter, your level, 1 to 5, depending on the skill level of your team, number of wheelchairs, and then you list your players, whether they're athletes and partners, their birth date, just so we can have that information. I thought there was another slide. How did I get there? Hitting the wrong button, that's fine. Let me stop the share, and I'm going to open up that page directly so I can do it a little bit more appropriately for you. Sharing in. All right, so if you go to the CAS CIAC website, you'll come here, you'll choose CIAC. And then we hide it very well on this site, but you can come up to here to Unified Sports. And then there's information about our program. But the part you're going to concentrate on is downloads and entries. And intent to enter high school, middle school. So this brings you right to that page. You're going to fill out your school information. As I said, you'll check which events you're going to be entering. We would always encourage you to just enter master team roster. That just puts it in our database of who's participating without associating an event to it. You'll select your level 1 through 5, 1 being, like freshman team, varsity team caliber, 5 being significantly disabled, physically and intellectually, and the range in between. Make your best guess. It doesn't have to be 100%, especially if not done it before. You may have to work on that down the road. Number of wheelchairs or walkers involved, and then you'll list each student, name, date of birth, male, female, athlete, partner. And I'll show you a little trick afterwards if you've entered before or when you enter again. And then, excuse me, more information at the bottom. And then you click that your kids meet your school's health standards. And click here to submit this form. Some people have forgotten that and never registered, even though they filled it all out. And when you click that, it will generate a response email to you. And that way you'll know that you were successful. If you've registered before, you can click on this link at the top, click here to import school and roster information. And then you can pick a previous entry that you've made. So I know that Adam Killingworth Middle School's been here before, so I could just import their whole team roster and all their information would be there. So they don't have to retype it all. If there's someone who is new, you can add them. If there's someone who no longer participating, you could delete them, but it saves you from a lot of tedious entry. That makes sense? Good. All right, let me get back to that slideshow. And share again for the certification information. So we'd like to have you enter any of these events by the 25th so that we know what's coming up. We have a chance to organize ourselves and let other people know. We do have our awards dinner coming up the 25th. And we hope you're all participating there. So for certification, you're completing this season-specific training now. You should have at least one certified coach with the state of Connecticut to cover your school. That's a legal requirement of the state legislature. And we do have access to a National Federation of High Schools online course for unified sports coaches that we would encourage you to take as well. We can provide that information if you give us a heads up. And concussion training, which is on the CIC website, as well as first aid and CPR, which you'll need for your state certification. Make sure you bring emergency contact information with you, not only about athletes and partners, but for you and other adults that may be coming. That was pretty much it on the certification. Anybody have questions about the certification aspect?
One thing I want to add about the registration for the tournaments. While we have a formal registration system for all of our state and league tournaments, if schools do any events with just another school and you kind of set something up and have a track meet or a cornhole tournament or a wiffle ball game, if you could just send us a quick note, any one of us, a quick note to let us know that you participated in that type of event. That's great information that we need as far as tracking the numbers of events and things that students participate in unified sports. And that really helps with our reporting down the road.
It does. We have to report to a lot of our funders about numbers of participants. So the better idea we have of it, the better job we can do pleasing them and then continuing to please us with their funding.
Bob, who do we send that information to specifically? Anybody, any one of you, or?
Yeah, any one of us is fine.
Okay.
Any other concerns that we can address with for anybody?
I just wanted to say one thing. When you're along with your first aid kits, make sure you bring water, especially for the outdoor track events. Can be very hot and extra hot on the track. So make sure your students have water, and in some cases, you can bring a case of water. We do provide water, but sometimes it just makes it easier.
Exactly. Well, we
One thing,
appreciate, go ahead.
one thing I would recommend is to check with your school district regarding permission forms and travel release forms. If that's required of all your interscholastic athletes, I would recommend that you get a copy of that form that they use in athletics and just run that off and hand it out to your participants and have their parents just sign off on it so that you're covered for any bus transportation or any injury that might happen. You need the emergency contact information is pivotal to carry with you for every event that you go to.
Great. I put my email in the chat if you need it. Feel free to reach out with any more questions or anything that you might need. And we appreciate you coming this afternoon. Get out there and enjoy a few more minutes of sunshine. Thanks and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
All right.